So I'm Katie. I'm a burnout expert. I provide mental wellbeing training for teams, and I also do one-to-one coaching for professionals, all with the aim of helping people and businesses stay healthy, productive, and burnout-free. So my background is in communication and project management, and over the last 15 years or so, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of workplace wellbeing right across the board, from governments all the way to tech startups. And I think the ugliest has to have been the end of 2018, when I had my final, hopefully third and final, burnout, which took best part of a year for me to recover from. And since then, I've been helping businesses and individuals tackle the weird and wonderful world of well-being at work. And that's what I'm going to do here with you all today. So I burned out in part because I didn't speak up. So I want to give you today some very, very quick kind of tips, a small guide that you can use to speak to your boss if you're feeling frazzled. There'll be time for questions at the end. If you pop them in the chat, one of the team will pick them up for me, and I'll get back to you then. So why are we feeling so frazzled? It's been quite a tough year, right? We've had all the usual stressors, all the things in work that usually will, trigger some anxiety, make us a little bit stressed out. But we've had a global pandemic to go through as well. I'm not going to dwell on that because we'll have heard so much about it. But it is having and will continue to have a real impact on our stress levels and affect our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. So if you imagine your mental well-being as a triangle, and it applies to all of our well-being, in fact. For most of us, most of the time, we're healthy. We're in this top part of the triangle, and then occasionally we'll slip down into that stress section, and hopefully not very often, or never if we can manage it, we'll get to that bottom bit of the triangle. So this red wiggly line is life. And life is work and outside of work. And this red wiggly line, so occasionally something will come along, we'll have a bad day or a big project, or something will happen in our personal life, and it will stress us out, and our body will release the stress hormone cortisol, and that will dip our average well-being down into this stressed zone. But generally, we have enough time in between these stresses to recover and kind of feel healthy. So most of us will spend most of the time in this top part. But what's happened in this last 15 months is that there hasn't been enough time between these stressors. They've been coming thick and fast. So my very scientific wobbly red line here, you'll see that, or see and possibly have experienced the fact that the stresses that used to come along, maybe every other week or so, are coming thick and fast every single day. They've slowed a little bit now, but there was one point where we couldn't put on the news, we couldn't enter a WhatsApp group, we couldn't go out of the house. Everything we did was sending us signals that, to be afraid, to look after ourselves. So what's happened is that nice wavy line has become a really, really spiky line, just kept lots of us in this really, really stressed out zone for much more of the time, which brings our average well-being down. And there's too many stresses to mention. I'd probably be here for the whole 30 minutes talking about them. So I'll mention some of the biggies, things like fear of our health and safety of ourselves and our loved one, radical changes in work, little to no separation between work and home life, and things like having our usual stress-reducing coping mechanisms removed from us. So for me, that looks like the gym. We couldn't do that for a long time. We couldn't see our friends or loved ones. So all of our usual coping mechanisms, getting my words jumbled, mechanisms were removed for so long that meant that stress hormone built up in our bodies. And now we're starting to feel that. And that might feel like disrupted sleep. It might feel like being irritable, having a low mood, or it may be that we're having physical symptoms like headaches, back pain, stomach upsets. These are all things that I experienced when I went through burnout. And we're just not having enough time to recover. Hence, so many of us are sliding further down that triangle towards burnout. And that's what we really, really want to try and avoid. Is this making sense? I'm conscious that I'm going like mega fast because I want to try and give you as much information as I possibly can in this session. But if you want me to slow down, you just let me know. So anyway, we are powering through all of these things, not coming up for air, and it's taking its toll. Even yesterday, as Sophie mentioned, huge global companies are saying they're shutting down for entire weeks because they have collective burnout across their team. Just mind-blowing, And if you're feeling like this, you're not on your own. 76% of us are saying that we're experiencing burnout at the moment. It really is not to kind of use pandemic after everything that's happened this year, but it is at that point. So what is it? What exactly is burnout? Anyone got any ideas? So this very friendly looking chap on the left was the first person, Herbert Freudenberger, back in the 70s. So it's not something new. It's been going on for a long blinking time. He was the first person who coined the phrase burnout. And it's really a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion. This caused by excessive or prolonged periods of stress. Hello, red squiggly line, that just, we haven't managed to get out of. And it happens when we feel overwhelmed, when we feel drained, and when we're unable to meet the constant demands being piled on top of us. But one thing I always say is burnout is not a weakness. It's the result of doing too much for too long without support. And that's why I think so many of us burnout is because we suffer in silence and we don't let people know what's going on until it's too late. Anyone else got I have my feet up as well, but I haven't got shoes on, so I don't want to embarrass myself. Anyone else, suffer in silence, hold things in, refuse to tell, our loved ones, colleagues what's going on until actually we don't have any choice? Yeah. So what can we do? We need to break the cycle. And I wanted to give you a little explanation of what this cycle looks like, because burnout is sneaky. It will creep up on us. We get stuck in the cycle of overworking, prioritizing everything above our own needs because we think that that's how it's meant to be. We believe, we've been conditioned since we were tiny in school to think that hard work is the only way, and we should be feeling exhausted because that's part and parcel of life. But it doesn't have to be that way. Yet, we need to figure out where we are in this cycle so we can step away from it and break it. Have a little look at these 12 parts and see if any of it sounds familiar to you. So imagine you started a new job, right? You go in, you really want to prove yourself. You want to leave a good impression. It's so common because we get so much of our self-worth from work. So we really push. We really start putting ourselves seconds to work because we want to show that we are competent and capable. So we start ignoring our needs a little bit. It's only normal that we can't fit in all the extra work we do to try and look so brilliant and have a life that's healthy and balanced on the side of it. So that's when overwhelm starts to build up. We might start noticing some of those physical symptoms I touched on. Poor sleep, classic, when we're stressed out. Headaches, stomach aches, stiffness in your neck or your jaw. And we carry on. We keep, putting work first because even when we feel overwhelmed, we're like, oh goodness, I still need to show how brilliant I am. I don't want to look useless or lazy, or we fear that we might get, looked over for a promotion, or in the pandemic times, be the first out the door if anything is going to happen like that in our organization. And as I mentioned, we don't like to tell anyone this, right? We're taught, especially, I don't know what the split is here today, but in the UK, to have that stiff upper lip. We'll deny that anything's the matter. Who actually says what really is going on with them when someone says, how are you, in a work conversation? Clinton, I saw your hand go up then. Brilliant. That makes me happy. Or like, yes, Sarah, never. This is a more common answer. Clinton, we need to channel some of your energy. This is a more common answer because we don't want to. We're proud. We don't want to burden anyone with our stuff, so we withdraw because it's very difficult to tell people to hide from people the reality of our stress when we're in amongst them. So we withdraw. It's easier to keep things to ourselves, but we don't mix. And then we'll start to notice those behavioral changes. We get irritable because we're shattered, because we're not sleeping. We become antisocial. So our friends and our families might think, they don't really want to spend time with us. Everything starts to feel pretty mechanical. You're like getting up, going through the motions, going home, or in my case, coming to my kitchen, going back upstairs because I'm not going out of the house. And eventually it just sucks the joy out of everything. We start to feel empty, and that then is when we're already quite deep in that burnout cycle. We start to feel exhausted, extreme tiredness, low, and then eventually, boom, we collapse and burn out. I'm smiling not because I think that's funny, but because I'm looking at the little top bit where we take a week off, like a big company yesterday gave all of their staff a week off to recover. But they're going to go and put them back in the same organization. And that's what we're going to look at today. How do we avoid going back around that spiral or back around that circle and keep ourselves healthy and happy and balanced so we can have a life and work that fulfills us? So the very, very first thing I'll say is that we need to let go of our wobbly, because I love that word, help narrative. Asking for help is not a weakness. We need to do that so we don't keep getting sucked back into that cycle. We need to let go of the idea that asking for help is bad. I'd argue in fact that by speaking up, we're being really conscientious and really professional and showing how much we care and how much we're committed to doing a good job, because we know we need to be healthy to do good work. So, if you're feeling stressed and exhausted, your boss is probably going to suspect that something's up, and they might just not have wanted to approach the subject with you. So you're giving them the opportunity to help you by letting them know that you need some support. You're opening a door to them for that conversation where they may have been too timid to approach you in the first place. So the first thing is let go of the idea that asking for help is bad or weak. My slides aren't moving. There we go. Second thing, be prepared for the conversation. So you've psyched yourself up, you're ready to talk to them, but what are you going to say? So think about what you want to tell them, what you want to get out of that conversation. What are you trying to achieve? Going in with a plan can really help you feel less stressed. Just think if you're going to do a presentation, just like today, I prepared slides before I came to speak to you. And if you don't need to prepare slides, I think that's probably a step too far, unless you're really into that thing. But having a pointed list of what you want to say and what you want to get out of it can really take the pressure off. And be human. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. They're human as well, and you can let them know that it's difficult for you to talk about that with them. That can help build trust and build connection, and they can see actually this is really hard for them too. So it instantly kind of levels that playing field. Vulnerability is scary, but it's really, really powerful. The next thing, so be honest and specific about your experience. I just mentioned vulnerability. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. I know it can feel so scary to open ourselves up and say, yeah, we just can't cope with everything at the moment, or we're feeling exhausted and we need to drop a few balls so we can, get back on an even keel. But be really, really honest and specific about what you're going through. I would say stick to the facts. So what are the facts of the situation? Things that in black and white, they can't be argued. And that also can take away some of that, not tension, but the complexities of a conversation when you're really, really sticking to the facts. I just seen some comments come up in the chat, and I'll come back to them at the end and answer. So I'll try and go through the last few slides, and I'll come back and answer your questions. So what are the facts? Avoid using general terms as well. This is a big thing that I've noticed when I was managing, but also with my clients. They'll say, I'm stressed or I'm tired. It's really difficult to fix a problem when it's very general. So what specifically is causing you to feel like that? Try and unpick it. So for example, instead of I'm stressed out or I'm tired, it could be I'm feeling really anxious about meeting all of the deadlines. It's not clear what the priorities are. I need support and guidance on X, Y, or Z, for example. Be as specific as you can and as honest as you can. The next one, acknowledge the impact. This is another one which I notice can be a difficult one for people to manage. So we often feel overly responsible in work. Like we don't want to take a day off, or we don't want to ask for, you know, a deadline to be pushed back, because we feel responsible and don't want it to impact others. And this means you won't step away from work, which we think is doing someone a favor. But actually, when we're working, when we should be resting, our productivity is 7.5 times lower than when we work when we're healthy. The impact is so much worse when we don't step away when we should. So think about how you working when you're really exhausted, stressed, burnt out is affecting your team. And if it hasn't really hit them yet, what could it impact them like if you don't step away? Frame this impact in terms of how you want to help them when you speak with your boss. Like, you don't have to apologize for being burnt out. Never do that. Like, this is not something that you've chosen. But you can say, you know, I know I haven't been myself recently. I'm conscious that it's having a knock-on effect, and I really want to do something about it. I need your support to do X, Y, Z, so we don't have this effect on the team. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, just try and acknowledge the impact it has elsewhere, so you can see that you're really caring about the kind of the bigger picture in the organization. And again, this one, do not wag the finger metaphorically or otherwise. Ask, don't blame. When we wag our finger at someone, even when it's completely justifiable, it gets their backs up, we get defensive. Even when we know it's true, we just don't like being told off. You know, it takes us back to being kids and being in school, and it just all feels a bit uncomfortable, and who are they to tell me whatever? So yeah, try not to you know, point the finger especially at your manager, but at others as well. Make it clear that you're asking for help and that you want to be part of the solution. Like we said about at the beginning about being specific about what you want to get out of the conversation. Be specific and gracious in what you're asking for them to do. If you need time off, for example, more flexibility, additional resources, you know, just be as clear and as kind of break it down as much as you can for them, because they might not be able to do everything all at once. But the clearer and simpler and smaller each of those parts are, the easier it's going to be for you both to come to a kind of a compromise in the interim. And if all this feels too much, I know it's very easy for me to say it here on the other side of a screen, you know, running through all these points. If this feels too much, practice. That also might feel a bit weird, but just running through it, a bit like being prepared. Practice with a mate, practice, you know, with a colleague, practice with a loved one. Maybe you've got an ex-manager that you could run through it with if you've got that kind of relationship with them, a coach, anyone to help you kind of put oxygen around those words, brainstorm ideas. That can really help as well if you're not sure what solutions you're looking for. So it might feel a bit kind of kooky to do it, but it'll definitely help make that first conversation with your manager or your boss, your colleague, that much smoother if you're a bit nervous about it. And then the last one, just remember they're human. You know, everyone really deep down wants to help. No one is going to look at you and say, oh God, ooh, I don't want to do that, or be angry. But they might not handle it with, the most grace. And if they don't take that personally. Don't forget, they too could be burnt out, stressed, under a lot of pressure. So just keep that in mind. Don't take it personally if they aren't like bending over to do everything immediately. They might need some time to process it and to understand what is within their power to do and what they might need to ask their manager for. And remember that it might take more than one conversation, but the next one is going to be so much easier once you've had that first one. So we've got a few minutes left for some questions. I know there's been a few in there. If anyone wants to unmute their mic, I'll be very, very happy to take questions. And while I wait for those, if any of this sounds familiar and you want some extra support, I share loads of free resources on socials and on my website. And if you're looking for some one-to-one support, you can drop me an email, which is at the top here, and Sophie's going to be sharing some discounts as well for my coaching packages. So yeah, reach out to me. I'll be happy to help.
Yes.
Have you got any questions?
There's been some things in the chat. I don't know if you want me to pick up on some of these.
Yeah, I'm just having a look now.
Yeah, sure. And obviously, if anybody does want to ask their question to Katie, let us know, and one of us can unmute you to ask. And Cheyenne will be dropping all Katie's links into the chat as well.
Oh yeah, this is Susan. That sounds really tough. She says that I'm recalling when I was second in command and ended up enduring the abusive behaviour of a boss until I retired, until the boss retired 3 months later. I can confirm 70% productivity is accurate. It's so unfair and so difficult. Yet we sit in, we stay in these positions and just think that that's normal. We think that that's a kind of behaviour that's expected of us because we're being paid, and it's not. And it does really impact our productivity. So if you go into the conversation with that mindset of I'm doing something that's best for the team and best for the business, and explain that to your manager as well, they're a fool if they don't bend over backwards to help you be as productive and happy in the workplace as you possibly can be. Seeing what other comments there are. What do you do when asking for help is immediately rejected? The boss isn't at least a bit okay. So again, from Susan, I can't say that no boss will ever do this, because some people just aren't very nice, unfortunately, and that's the reality of life. And what I would say is, if they immediately reject your I guess it depends on how it's rejected. If it's a really aggressive one, I would probably just go and speak to someone in HR. If it's because they've been a bit dismissive and they haven't quite processed it, I'd probably follow up and say, we had this first conversation. I feel like I didn't really get anything resolved. Can we speak again? I had one manager, it wasn't with Burnout, but it took 3 times. Every new initiative, every message, every change, it took 3 meetings to get that through. And it's very difficult when we're burned out to do that. So get support from loved ones and from HR. But definitely, if you need a resolution, go back to your manager. That's their role, to create an environment where you can thrive. And don't forget that.